Bad news if you're a fan of Prey from 2017 or Hi-Fi Rush, last year's breakout hit from Xbox, as it turns out Microsoft has decided that 4 Bethesda studios, including Arkane Austin, Tango Gameworks, AlphaDog, and Roadhouse, are going to be shut down. So we're going to talk about this today and why it's kind of ridiculous and what we can expect from Microsoft moving forward. Hey everybody, I'm Bobby here from Direct Gaming, and today we're talking about Xbox shutting down 4 Bethesda studios. As always, if you're new here, we just ask that if you like this video, feel free to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more news, reviews, guides, and other things that we talk about gaming, as that's a free and easy way to support what we do here. So let's talk about Xbox shutting down these studios. We're going to read through an article from GameIndustry.biz. This news was broken by Jason Schreier this morning, who is the guy who breaks just about all of the news relating to the games industry. But we're reading the article by Brendan Sinclair of GameIndustry.biz today. Microsoft is shutting down 4 of the studios it picked up as part of the 2020 Bethesda acquisition, as reported by IGN. The 4 studios include Arkane Austin, maker of last year's disappointing Redfall, and Tango Gameworks, the studios behind Hi-Fi Rush, Ghostwire Tokyo, and The Evil Within. Beyond that pair, Mighty Doom developer AlphaDog Studios and Human Head software successor Roadhouse Games are also shutting down. In an email to staff, Xbox Game Studio head Matt Booty reportedly said that the company was closing the developers in order to focus resources on quote-unquote high-impact titles and the rest of Bethesda's portfolio of games. To double down on these franchises and invest to build new ones requires us to look across the business to identify the opportunities that are best positioned for success, Booty said. This reprioritization of titles and resources means a few teams will be realigned to others and that some of our colleagues will be leaving us. Booty said that some of Arkane Austin's developers will be moved to other Bethesda studios, while the entire team at Roadhouse will become part of ZeniMax Online Studios to work on the Elder Scrolls Online. In addition to the studio closures, Booty said a small number, quote-unquote, of people in Bethesda publishing and corporate roles will also be laid off. As for the games these teams had been working on, Redfall will not receive any more content updates, and for those who purchased the quote-unquote Hero Pass DLC, which was advertised including 2 yet-to-be-made playable characters, will receive an unspecified make-good of some sort. As for AlphaDog's cute mobile top-down shooter Mighty Doom, the game will be sunset August 7th. Microsoft announced in January that it would be laying off 1,900 people from its games division. Microsoft declined a request for clarification as to whether the cuts are part of that round of layoffs or in addition to it. I think one of the most damning things about this is that Microsoft really not saying whether or not these are additional layoffs or part of the 1,900 is probably more than likely proof that that is additional layoffs over the 1,900. So even if it's only 100 or 200 people, that's 2,000 to 2,100 people Microsoft has cut from their gaming division this year alone. But let's talk about the reality of the situation. Now let's talk about these studio layoffs, because a couple of these studios are actually fantastic, and while I did not care for Hi-Fi Rush, I was very vocal about that in my review. I in fact said quote-unquote fuck this game. I did not like that game at all because I thought it just did not deliver on anything that it could have and should have, in my personal opinion, but people did really like it. And Tango Gameworks is also the only Japanese studio Microsoft had. So if I'm a Japanese studio now, I'm looking at that and going, I don't know if I want to do deals with this company. A lot of people have been rooting for Xbox to buy Sega or Capcom or something like that. I don't think now that those companies will want to sell, because they know that their studios are more than likely going to be shuttered if they don't feed the beast that Microsoft has become. There's no way around it. With the acquisition of Activision Blizzard, Satya Nadella has put down a mandate that says studios must produce returns, and if they do not, they're going to be put on the chopping block. And it's so unfortunate, because them having such weak relationships with Japan studios is not going to be helped at all by shuttering their only Japanese studio. The other thing that I think is really unfair about this entire situation is the shutdown of Arkane Austin. Arkane Austin really is just a victim in all of this. ZeniMax put out the mandate that, hey, we're going to do live service games. We're going to do this game Redfall. It's going to be a 4-player online looter shooter. And the people at Arkane Austin were like, okay, I guess we have to make that game. But it came out later that they absolutely hated it. Again, Jason Schreier himself wrote the expose on how Microsoft kind of bought the studio, and the people working at Arkane Austin were like, oh, thank God, we don't want to have to work on this. They're going to see how bad this is, how little we desire to actually make this game. They're going to see all this, and they're going to come in and shut it down and tell us we can work on something like an immersive sim like we wanted to. Because I guarantee you a lot of those people who wanted to work at Arkane Austin after Prey were thinking, oh, I'm going to get to work on the next Prey or the next Dishonored, and they had to come in and really make this weak, kind of sad looter shooter game that, you know, I'm a fan of looter shooters and a fan of Arkane, and I was like, oh, maybe Redfall would be cool, that could be fun, and it was just bad. It was so bad that it kind of acted as a stain on Microsoft. And this again comes down to leadership, because Phil Spencer admitted after Redfall came out that he didn't really take any accountability in making sure that the studio was happy with what they were doing. He admitted, I didn't really check in on it. We were hands off. We wanted to just let them do whatever they were doing. We didn't really care. And boy, let me tell you, like, if you purchase something, especially like a business, and you go in and just go, just do whatever, I don't care, like, you are a piss poor leader. Now, I understand the thinking that Phil Spencer had. He probably thought, hey, they're working on whatever they're working on, I'm not going to get in the way. But you have to step in and at least look at what's going on and go, okay, let's everybody sit down and talk about this. What's happening here? Are we feeling good about these projects? Are we feeling like things are working? Do you need help? And none of that was done. And now, because of that, because of Xbox's poor leadership again, once great studio that has made some great games, and yes, did unfortunately make one of the worst games of 2023, but they have made some great games, they are now not going to get a chance to make another game. We're not going to get another Prey, as good as Prey was. And I think now we're seeing Microsoft really reach their final form, where they're becoming just the mega large version of EA, where if you are not immediately producing something that is just going to sell and make them money, doesn't matter how cool it is, doesn't matter how creative it is, if you're not pulling in money immediately, you're going to get shuttered. I'm going to safely make the assumption now that this time next year, we're going to see Ninja Theory close down, because Ninja Theory has had so much time and money to work on Hellblade 2, and the fact that they're keeping it on PC, as well as Hellblade 2 being such a niche title, and it being on Game Pass, that game is not going to sell well. It's just not. There's no way, there's no universe where that game sells enough copies to justify all of the expense that they spent on Ninja Theory so far. And I'm predicting right now that they're going to shut down Ninja Theory next year, because they're just not going to see that return. And if you're an Xbox fan who comes to see this video and you go to the comments and say, hey, you're wrong, Xbox is just doing this to make sure everything's better, blah, blah, blah. This is exactly the stuff that all of us who were against the Activision Blizzard acquisition in the first place were saying. They were going to gobble up more and more stuff, and they were going to shut stuff down. And this is exactly what's happening, because you cannot take a property like Call of Duty and not focus all of your attention on it. Basically, Activision knew that that's what was happening. That's why Call of Duty had declines over the last few years, and that's why Activision was so willing to sell. They're like, oh, this is not going to make money like it is in the next few years, and we're spending too much keeping it going. We need to get this off our hands. And there's the old adage of, hey, there's always a bigger sucker. Well, Bobby Kotick found the bigger sucker in Microsoft. He got them to buy the magic beans, and they thought, hey, we got everything we need right here. But now they're seeing how much it costs to run Activision Blizzard. They're cutting stuff out of Blizzard. They're cutting stuff out of Activision. I wish they would have at least divested Arkane Austin, like sell it off, like let anybody else take that IP, because now we're never going to get another Prey game. But honestly, one of the things that really sucks is just the developers of all these companies are now going to have to be looking for jobs in an already hyper competitive market because of all the other people who have already lost their jobs just this year alone. And why? It's to appease the shareholders, to make sure that people like Phil Spencer, Matt Booty, Sarah Bond, and Satya Nadella all get their bonuses at the end of the year. And I just really hope that those people can find something that really lets them, find happiness and create some more great stuff down the road, because games are the art and the hobby that we here at Direct, and you, if you're watching this, there's no chance you're not a gamer. There's no reason you'd be watching this otherwise, right? We want these people to feel secure, safe, like they have a job they can create at their best, because if you don't feel good and safe with what you're doing, you're not going to create at your best. Trust me, as someone who's been in the games industry and in a creative industry for 15 years, it takes its toll when things like this start to happen. I mean, I exited the game industry after I got laid off from EA in 2009. I kind of took like 10 years almost to get back into even talking about games publicly and stuff again on YouTube, and that was just through doing guides and stuff. Now here, we report on this stuff because we feel like it is important for you to know as consumers and to vote with your wallet. Like, if you feel like Microsoft is wrong for doing this, let it be known. A lot of people are saying they want to cancel Game Pass, things like that. We just saw that work with Sony and Helldivers. People asking for refunds and stuff on Steam. That could work with Microsoft too and send a really big message. But most importantly, if you really do love a game or a company, don't rely on Game Pass or PlayStation Plus or any kind of subscription service, because that is not going to keep those studios alive. We saw so many people played Hi-Fi Rush. They reported those huge player numbers and they said, oh, hey, yeah, it's successful. Absolutely. We consider it a huge success. Aaron Greenberg himself said that. And yet now we're seeing that obviously it wasn't successful enough to keep the studio alive, because not a lot of people bought it. It didn't even end up on PlayStation sales charts this last month when it was released. And I actually thought it would because of the hype that surrounded it, but it turns out it just unfortunately didn't, and that did not keep Tango alive. So yeah, the important lesson: if you enjoy a game, if you think a game is worth your time, worth your energy, give the developers money by buying the game. We've already seen a bunch of developers come out in the last year or so, even ones who had Game Pass deals, come out and say, hey, Game Pass is great, cool for like eyes, but if you really want to support us, buy the game. And I've been saying that for years on this channel. Talon has been saying that for years on this channel, and we're going to continue to say it because that is the best way to ensure that a game company lives to see another day. What do you think about Xbox closing these studios? Do you think it's fair? Do you think they're going to be okay? I've seen a lot of people say, hey, Xbox, like I've just lost all my faith in them now. Like, I can't take anything they say because they said these games were great. Obviously with Redfall, they admitted that was a blunder, but they touted Hi-Fi Rush as a huge success last year, and even into this year saying, oh, it was actually great. That's why we're bringing it to PlayStation, because it sold so well on Xbox. But please let us know what you think in the comments below. We try to read all the comments. We try to answer as many as we have time for. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. Just depends on the day. We're both teachers, but we do love talking with you about this stuff. So let us know in the comments. And remember, you can follow us on Twitter at 59direct. You can follow me personally at LittleBobby TV, or you can follow Talon at Gaming Talon. We love talking about games on there, and that's where I do most of my talking and gathering information. Like, I'll get links and things like that, mostly from Twitter. So if you want to make sure you're able to keep up with me, keep up with Talon, and keep up with Direct as a channel, follow us over on Twitter. But hey, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. Again, I'm Bobby here with Direct Gaming, and we hope to see you soon.